Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Zoom room, the open studios here of Charles Baldwin. I'm Charles, and I'm doing a Zoom stream for 6 hours of the open studios during Somerville Open Studios 2021. And I'm here in my studio at Brickbottom Artist Building. And a couple of people are in the Zoom room, and when Mr. Ted Prato walked in, I'm like, I want to grab a quick little interview with you. But please, I want to have both my guests introduce themselves briefly, and then Ted, I'll sort of get right into it with you. So Chris, welcome.
Yep.
Hi. Coming by the studio.
Nice to be here. My name is Chris Medeiros. I'm a psychotherapist in Boston, and lived here for about 31 years, and very happy to be here.
Have you ever been to a physical open studio?
Yes.
At Brickbottom?
Not Brickbottom, but
not a Brickbottom. Okay, all right. Thank you for coming this year.
All right.
Ted Prato, you've been involved with Brickbottom Open Studios itself. Have you ever done the Somerville Open Studios before?
I never have done the Somerville Open Studios, mainly because the rules were such that I could not, because I actually live in Cambridge.
Ah.
I don't live in Somerville.
So, and you couldn't, well, but you were an affiliate member at Brickbottom for how long have you been?
20 years now. I was brought in by Lois Fiore, for a wonderful show called A Certain Journey about artists, dealing artistically with their aging parents and concerns with aging and dementia and so forth.
Well, Ted, that is actually so fascinating because, I talked to Lois yesterday during the open studios, and we talked about another show that she put up regarding the stories around racial inequities, the loss of history, legacy of slavery. And so interesting to hear this about aging. Both are those topics that actually a lot of the conversations this weekend have kept coming to. It's been very interesting.
Yeah,
but an affiliate member who wasn't allowed to to show at the Somerville Open Studios to now, tell us what you do for the BAA.
Well, I've been a member of the BAA for 20 years now, since that first show, and I tremendously enjoyed the open studios, and grew a lot as an artist through the years. As a result of that, of that contact. And I felt like, a couple of years ago, I felt I had a good connection, with fellow artists and BAA members. And Suji, who wasn't on the board, but he was the Open Studios director, at the time. Right. He said, "Oh, Ted, you should be on the board." I thought, yes, let me give back, Little did I know.
So what's your role now with the BAA board?
Now I have ascended to the directorship or presidency of the board, and everything was kind of pretty quiet until this past January, when all hell broke loose for this open.
But a lot of changes. I mean, you're the first affiliate board chair, which I think is a direction of the Brickbottom Artist Association for real. So I'm adjacent to the board of people who might be listening in. I work for the Mass Cultural Council. I cannot serve on a board, but I live here and I like to know what's going on. And we've been chatting about different activities around the BAA for a while, but most of that during the great sheltering of 2020. So navigating that first as a board member and now the chair of the president of the board, what's that been like?
Well, one of my goals was always to get the affiliates, more as an integral part of BAA, because they were sort of a fringe group, but then there's a significant number of affiliates, in the BAA. It's like over 35%. And so that's a big voting block right there.
It is.
And my impression, my idea was always to sort of get the BAA sort of opening up to the wider world, which, our virtual open studios will do. And it's a great model.
Yeah.
It was very disheartening last year with the pandemic that the whole building and the Arts Association Artists Association kind of closed down in on themselves, you know, a little bit. And that, it's a funny graphic showing here. They closed down in on themselves and they're shut out the outside world, which was of necessity, but I'm glad we're opening up now.
We're starting to get a little, the gallery is open to the public. That happened just mid-April. Because I know that we had been following the city of Somerville, and we had a bunch of stuff that we had to do. And then as the numbers have changed and the cities have started opening up, we did actually open up just not even a month ago, just 2 weeks really.
Yep.
So the gallery's open and we're trying all this digital stuff. What was oh, this was because we got a grant from Somerville Arts Council to do this
That's right.
experiment.
We got an $8,000 grant from the Somerville Arts Council to sort of generate more sustainable practices and equipment to sort of beef up our, you know, ability to survive and to.
Well, because it really was a survival grant. It was in response to COVID, and
Yeah.
that whole idea of, you know, how adaptable, how nimble is an organization to survive that kind of trauma. And although it may not have been a pandemic that was predicted, to get that kind of emergency responsive grant, I think has been great. We don't know what open studios will look like in the future. Partly because, as everyone says, video streaming is here to stay. How do you feel about all this video streaming, Ted? Is it part of your work?
Part of my work.
Yeah, part of your work, meaning as a lot of employers are using these various video streams to achieve things. And so I just wondered, because I know you're in engineering.
Right, right. Okay, so I mean, this is the communication form of the last year.
The
And I
video
think
stream,
I think
right?
it's here to stay. And I think that as relates to Brickbottom and Brickbottom artists, I think that the most important thing is to have an outlet, you know, to be heard and to be seen and to be able to sell art. And I think that's the crowning value, you know, of the video format, you know, the communication with the world at large. It's just so important.
I totally agree with that. The nature of sort of the network that makes us stronger together and how it ties to commerce, because all of this speculation on the horizon is going to certainly affect the market and us creative people and practitioners that might rely upon our creative labor to make money. It's important to sort of have different platforms. And we did get that with the BAA with this project. We've got a way for money to go into the BAA account that isn't writing a check to Deborah and having her run it into the office and then put it in an envelope and mail it to the bank.
Rolling coins in the office isn't going to work anymore.
We're going to pull the BAA into the 20th century. I think you've heard me say that before.
That's right. Well, you know, and you mentioned my engineering work, so that's the corollary. You know, I feel like it's on the same, it's part of the same continuum, part of the same spectrum. It's only different. You know, I do creative engineering work. I work in engineering R&D, and I've been part of a 45-year engineering career in water treatment, but mostly in R&D. And so I create things, I build machines that do things, I make things work. And that's really part of the artist in me, is like I like to make things.
Well, you know, this is my whole thing around the BAA, and we think about the changing nature of, you know, first it was we're all in the building, and then it was a lot of people moved, some people are still in the building, and then sort of the affiliations. And now it's sort of how do we exist in the region of Somerville and in New England? And I think a lot of that has to do with the kind of work that comes out of Brickbottom, but empowering that expansion, I think, is super important, so that there's this relevancy. So I like that you of course, you recognize that your design work, its nature of intentionality is the same as your creative work. Um, because trying to, again, increase the Brickbottom membership is wanting to pull more people in who are fabricators and coders and designers and musicians and all the kind of creative things that crackle in and out of people. So, but tell us what you're on the Cape and you have a love of photography. Tell me a little bit about that, and then we'll sort of wrap this up, and I'll let you go back outside.
Okay. Well, my photography, I like to do, my favorite thing is abstractions in nature. Something unusual that you can find, that looks like something else. For instance, I found these eroded sand patterns in a creek bed in Utah, and it looked like, outline of fossilized dinosaur bones. And it was just fascinating, and it was real, and yet it was abstract. Rosamund Purcell has a great piece in the current show. It's like a close-up of a lobster, face of a lobster in a lobster tank, the antenna is sticking out. That's a fabulous piece because it's exactly that. It's like, it's abstraction, but it's like just a real object in the world. So that's kind of my thing. I really like, nature to express itself in an exciting way, and my photography, sometimes, you get in the mode and I just wander around and I find incredible things. You just have to be able to look, and I think that's, I can't be a painter because I don't want to stay in one place, I can see painting, but I'm kind of more active than that, and I think that defines me as a photographer.
Well, Ted, thanks for sharing the VAA and for letting me drag you indoors in front of a screen yet again for this little chat. And like I said, appreciate you
Thanks,
coming by.
Charles. It's been fabulous working with you.
Until the next meeting. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks again,
Great,
Ted.
Ted.
I appreciate it.